Hey, little buddies, it's Uncle Rick from the Uncle Rick Audiobook Club, where you and I enjoy reading great books together. On today's podcast, I'll be reading a chapter or two from one of the exciting books in the club. I hope you enjoy it. Stick around at the end of the podcast, and I'll tell you how you can listen to the whole book, as well as tons of others that you are going to love.
A Visit with Uncle Rick, a podcast by Rick Boyer of Uncle Rick Audios.
Chapter 13, The Inspector. Down the rocky slope toward the little settlement on the flats below the dam rode Jack. He thought rapidly. If he could beat the flood, there would be time to warn the sleeping population so they could flee to the hills. There were not many who had their homes in the danger zone, not more than 25 families. I'll wake some of them up, Jack reflected, and then they can warn the others. I don't imagine they'll have time to save anything. Too bad. But that dam is certainly going. The rain came pelting down once more, the drops stinging in Jack's face. He tried to listen, to ascertain if he could hear the roar of the waters that would indicate that the dam had already gone out, but all he could catch was the splash of the rain. Jack's course was along the now turbulent stream that was formed from the overflow of the pent-up waters. In normal times, this was but a mere brook, most of the waters being led off through a pipeline to supply a distant irrigation scheme. But now there was so much water that not only was the pipeline filled, but the overflow from the dam had turned the brook into a river. The people ought to have seen the danger and gotten out before this, reflected Jack, but perhaps they haven't. Well, I'll do my best to save them. On galloped the faithful pony. Jack wished he could put the mail and express stuff somewhere until he could conclude his ride for life, but it would not be safe to leave it anywhere. Fortunately, he had not much of a load that night. To Jack it seemed that he never would reach the little town nor see the lights of the first cabin loom into sight. That is, if there'll be lights, if the folks are up, mused Jack, and I hope some of 'em are. There'll be some tall scrambling if I have to get 'em all out of bed. The rain was a perfect torrent now, and the lad realized that with all this additional water falling into the reservoir, and with what it would receive from the swollen mountain streams flowing in, the dam would be further endangered. The pony slipped and almost fell as he went around a bad turn where the trail was filled with rocks. "Look out there, Sunger," Jack cautioned him, and he pulled the faithful animal up. "There's no time to fall." But Sunger recovered himself and galloped on. Suddenly a light flashed into view. Then another. "A house!" exclaimed Jack. "The first one. Now for the alarm." He rode up to the door, glad in his heart that the light was burning. "Though that doesn't indicate they're awake," the lad mused. He pounded on the door, not getting out of the saddle. Get up!" he cried. "The dam will give way in a moment. Get up! Help give the alarm!" There was a moment of silence, broken only by the patter of the rain. "Hurry, hurry!" Jack cried, again pounding on the door. This time he heard, after a wait of a few seconds, someone moving in the house. Then a sleepy voice demanded, "What is it? What's the matter? Who's there?" "Never mind who I am," Jack replied. "It's the Pony Express rider between Golden Crossing and Rainbow Bridge, if you have to know. But the dam's giving way. It may have gone out now. There'll be the biggest kind of flood on these flats in half an hour. Get up, take to the hills." The door was thrown open, revealing a man wrapped in a blanket. He seemed to have just gotten out of bed. "What's that?" he inquired sleepily. Jack repeated his warning. The man understood now. He rushed back into the room. "Come on, Mandy," he yelled. "Get the children. Hustle into what clothes you can. We got to skip. The dam's going out. Quick now." "Warn the others nearest you," Jack cried as he turned Sunger away from the house. "I'm going to ride on down below and give the alarm." "I will," the man answered. "You've probably saved our lives." A woman could be heard crying, and children were screaming in fear within the house, but Jack could not stay for that. There were others to warn. On he rode, going past without pause the few houses near that of the man he had first called. Jack depended on him to give the alarm to his neighbors. But the lad called at other cabins, repeating his warning. Some folk he had difficulty in arousing, but the news soon spread, and in a short time the whole settlement was on the alert. As Jack knocked on the door of the last house, farthest removed from the upper end of the settlement, he heard a far-off, dull boom like the reverberation of an explosion. "There goes the dam!" cried Jack. "Now the flood'll come." But the people had been warned in time. They had no chance to save anything save their most easily carried belongings, and with these they fled to high ground. The noise Jack had heard was the breaking of the dam, and a little later a great wall of water swept down the narrow valley. It carried everything before it, sweeping away the frail cabins in its path. But there was no loss of human life, thanks to the brave pony rider. Jack wished he could help the unfortunates who had been left homeless, but he had other duties. And anyway, the residents on the higher ground, who were in no danger, came to the relief of their neighbors. Houses were thrown open to those whose homes had been swept away, and the refugees were given clothing, food, and shelter. The flood did not last long, for the reservoir was soon emptied, but in that short time it did great damage. That is, comparatively great, for the cabins were mostly those of poor persons. The mass of water gradually subsided, though the heavy rains had made a river of the mountain brook, and it was several days before it went back to its normal level. Then the work of repairing the damage of the flood was taken up. When Jack saw that night that he had done all he could, he turned back on the trail, for the mail must not be delayed longer than could be helped, and already nearly 3 hours had been lost. It was almost morning when he rode into Rainbow Ridge with the first news of the burst dam. He made light of his own part in the affair, but that came out later, and much honor was paid the lad. He bore his honors modestly, however, and the greatest praise, or what he considered such, was when his father said, "I'm proud of you, Jack, my boy." Relief for the unfortunate flood victims was sent from both Rainbow Ridge and Golden Crossing. And when Jenny heard of the disaster, she insisted on doing up some of her own clothing and forwarding it to some of the girls who had lost theirs. Everyone helped, as is always the case in a time like that, and though many families lost everything, still there was no mourning for lives that never could be given back. Jack had provided against that by his brave ride. It was 2 weeks after the flood, and now the mountains were calm and peaceful again. The long season of rain had passed, and the weather was glorious. Jack enjoyed every moment of it as he rode the trail. "It certainly is a great life," he reflected. "I'm glad the way's so rough. Otherwise, they'd be wanting me to use a motorcycle or an automobile. But none of them for me while I've got you, Sunger." The pony whinnied his answer as Jack patted him on the neck. "Well, anything big today, Jenny?" he asked as he rode up to the Golden Crossing office one afternoon. "Anything important? Why, what's the matter?" he asked in some concern. "You look worried." "I am, Jack," she said, and she did not answer his smile. "What about? Your mother isn't ill, is she? You haven't lost any registered letters." "No, it isn't that, but a post office inspector has been here asking me a lot of questions. He intimated that things weren't being done right, and he's coming back in an hour to check up my accounts." "Well, I suppose they have to do what they're hired for. Was he mean or ugly?" "No, but he seems terribly in earnest. And suppose my accounts aren't exactly right. I may have made little mistakes. Then he'll report me and I'll lose my office. Oh, Jack, I couldn't bear that." "Don't worry," Jack soothed her. "I'll stay and have a talk with this inspector. Maybe I can help straighten matters out if they're a bit wrong. You say he's coming back in an hour?" "Yes, and the time is nearly up. There he is now." Jack looked out, and a strange feeling came over him as he saw a large man on an unusually high horse riding up to the post office. "Is he the inspector?" asked the pony rider. "Yes," Jenny answered. Jack shut his teeth grimly, and a strange look came over his face. Chapter 14. The Chase. "Oh, Jack, what shall I do?" asked Jenny. She was trembling and seemed much alarmed. "Do? Well, you don't have to do anything," the Post Express rider. The Pony Express rider answered. "Let this inspector ask his questions, then we'll see what course to take." "Oh, but suppose he finds something wrong, not the proper amount of stamps on hand. I can't be sure I counted them right." "Say, little girl, don't you worry," Jack went on. "I don't believe this fellow will do much questioning." "Why, Jack, what makes you talk that way? He's a government inspector. He told me so. Do you know him?" "I rather think I do, but I'm not sure," Jack answered. Again there was a grim shutting of his lips, and a determined look came into his eyes. "I want to hear him speak first," the lad said. "Then I can tell better." The inspector, if such he were, had stopped outside the post office to light a cigar. He sat easily on his big horse, and Jack could not help admiring the noble animal. The man himself was a fine physical specimen, but he had a hard, cruel face and shifty eyes. There was no one in the immediate vicinity of the post office at that time, for Jack had delivered the mail an hour before, and he had sauntered back to the office after doing some errands about town to have a talk with Jenny. The other mail would not arrive for another hour, so there was no excuse for the gathering of the crowd which always awaited the incoming mail. Having lighted his cigar, the man again advanced slowly. He looked all about, Jack thought, to see if he was likely to be interfered with, but this may not have been so. He dismounted with easy grace and tied his horse to a post in front of the office. Then he sauntered in. Jack sat down in a chair behind the door out of sight. He did not want the inspector to see him until the right moment. "Well, Miss Blake, I believe you said your name was," began the man, and his tone was insolent. "I suppose you're ready to have me go over your accounts now?" Jack started at the sound of his voice. "That's the fellow, I'm positive of it," he thought. "Now I've got him. I've got one of them anyhow. Oh, this is luck." Jack's eyes gleamed. Jenny hardly knew what to make of the situation. She half expected Jack to do something or say something to help. Still, she was postmistress, and only she was qualified to answer the official questions. But if something was wrong... Well, then, maybe Jack will help me out, she thought. She was trembling and much upset. It was the first time an inspector had called at her little office. "Now, I want to see the records of the registered mail going and coming, Miss Blake. I also must check over your stamps and cash. Have you had in lately any special delivery stuff?" "Well, yes, that is... Oh, I hardly know where to begin," said the flustered girl, wishing Jack would say something. "You see, I've never been inspected before." "Huh," sneered the man. "You act as though something was wrong. Most offices where I go don't have such nervous persons in charge. If everything is all right, you have nothing to fear. Perhaps you'd better step outside and let me go over matters myself. That would be better, and you wouldn't be so nervous. If everything's all right, you have nothing to fear, and if there is something wrong, well, I'll be as easy in my report to Washington as I can. I won't make it too hard for you. Yes, I think that will be best. Just leave the office to me for a little while." Jenny flashed over the man's head a look at Jack in the corner behind the door. The young Pony Express rider had arisen, and to her alarm, Jenny saw his hand go toward the pocket where she knew he carried his revolver, a new one since the robber had taken his first one. Jenny wanted to scream. "Just run along, little girl, and let me have the place to myself," the man urged. It was time for Jack to act. He fairly sprang out from behind the door and confronted the man. "Are you sure," Jack asked, "that if she left the post office to you that you wouldn't run off with it?" The man started back. He turned a little pale, then a flood of red surged into his face. He seemed to recover himself with an effort. I don't know what you mean. Who are you?" he demanded curtly. "Never mind who I am, but who are you?" and Jack fairly shot out the words. "Why, I'm the post office inspector for this district," was the answer, and again the man's tone was sneering. "Are you connected with the department, if I may ask?" "I am," said Jack grimly. "In what capacity?" "Pony Express rider," shot out Jack. "The same Pony Express rider that you and your gang of outlaws held up not long ago. I know you now. I was sure of you the minute I set eyes on you on that big horse, and when I heard your voice I was doubly sure. Wearing your mask didn't help any. I know you. You're no more of a post office inspector than I am. You're a post office robber, that's what you are." The man started to speak, but stopped suddenly. As Jack was about to draw his weapon to order the man to submit, the fellow with a sudden leap was out of the place. In another instant he jumped to the back of his horse, yanking loose the tie rope as he leaned over the saddle. Then, with a clatter of hoofs, he was off. Jenny screamed, but Jack, flashing past her to get outside, yelled, "Stop him! Get after him! He's one of the fellows that held up the mail and robbed me! Stop him!" Jack fired in the air to attract attention, for the neighborhood was deserted. He could not bring himself to fire at the man, nor even at the splendid horse. Though the provocation was great, and though Jack would have been justified, he could not do it. "Stop him! He's a post office robber!" Jack yelled again, firing the shot. Then, leaping up on the back of his pony, which was waiting for him outside the building, Jack gave chase after the escaping outlaw. "We got to get him, Sunger," he cried. "We've got to get him." Thanks for listening to A Visit with Uncle Rick today, little buddies. That's all we have time for right now. But remember, the whole book is available on the Uncle Rick Audio Book Club at unclerickaudios.com. Why not ask Mom and Dad about joining my club today?